Alright, welcome to Gorgorth. As I mentioned, this is the region that is the closest to both Mount Doom and the fortress of Barad-dûr, although that one is basically endgame territory. The fortress that is here right now will be conquerable, and we will get to it in a couple of parts. But Barad-dûr itself will be essentially endgame territory, and this fortress is quite the occupied one. 5 warships, and all the orcs in this region are relatively high level. Again, I probably shouldn't have come here this soon, but for the purpose of getting all the artifacts and continuing some of the side mission, I should be fine.
Here, I wonder to what antics shall we perform?
Well, again, for the time, since it's just discovering new region, for the time being, we're just getting to the Hadir, discovering all the artifacts and everything, and then we'll continue one of the side quests here, specifically test what the spirit of Carnan tasked us to find Gorgorth, but all in due time.
So if I understand correctly, I'm assuming this game operates on the rule of 3. So, we'll have 3 main acts. The first act being having Shella be our big overseer. The second act having this Carnan gal be our overseer.
You asked this already when we met her, and I can tell you, just like I tell you before, and no. Like I said, the second act is where the game opens up and allows you to explore these regions, and you have a set of quest lines that you have to deal. You have the fortresses to conquer, you have Eltariel with the Nazgûs that you have to deal with, you have what the Spirit of Carnan has to do with, you have Bruce and Ratbag teaching you, the kings how to handling an army, stuff like that,
Okay,
Act 3 is essentially endgame.
Right, I should probably clarify, when I'm talking about the... Wait, hold on. So there are 3 acts in that regard?
Technically, yes. A prologue, 3 acts, and an epilogue.
Okay. That makes sense.
Like I said, Act 1 was the one more on rails that gave you a bit of a basics and, set up the story properly. But now that we're in 2D, we're visiting the meat of it. Yes, Wibbs?
Do we get an appendix?
You have 2 DLC episodes like in the previous game. I guess those count.
So the DLC episodes, do they take place in the middle of the plot, or are they epilogues?
One of them can take place after a certain point, but without, being any discretion if it's at the end of the plot or anything. Another one is definitely set after the main events of the game. So when we get to actually, witnessing those, we will do something similar to Lords of Shadow 2, where for one of them we will temporarily put on pause the main plot to do that, while for the others we can wait until the end of the game.
That's fine. So after Carnan, are there any other big overseers on our side, or
not necessarily big overseers. It's just a matter of again, the people that Talion meets and everything. Like the President of Shadow in Act 1 was just because, like he said, the plot was more on rail and everything. But otherwise, you're just like in the previous game, you're meeting people, handling around and stuff.
Oh, I get that. It's just the initial impression I got from this particular game story was we would have sections where we're sort of being watched over by these bigger forces in the world, essentially, who are coincidentally on our side. But yeah, okay, that's
more of a case where still our allies and everything. But like I said, it's similar to the previous game. Talion and Celebrimbor are still the main focus, and these are just the people that they meet occasionally. Sure.
Now, regardless of whatever
involved with it, them, interacting with these beings and everything, but not to that kind of level. Go on.
So, regardless of whatever controversies there may have been, what was the overall reception of this game? Was it high praise for the gameplay, like with the previous game?
There was a controversy connected also to the gameplay, but we have to wait a bit until I want to mention anything about it.
Okay, from what I can garner,
let me tell you this, in the state that the game is right now, it is actually well praised.
And it sold well too, right?
If I recall correctly, yes. Again, I don't remember any particularly of recent Warner Bros. Games releases that were, completely flops. In terms of license one, I don't remember how much Back 4 Blood did.
Oh, yeah, that's sure. It's just I'm guessing that in terms of why this didn't get a sequel, I'm going to assume that at the very least
the story, like he's also said a couple of times, the story in itself is conclusive. There is a hint of a possible, opening for a future story. But in terms of, the story about Talion, this is the end.
I know the engine is the same, but are they also getting some of the devs from this game for that Wonder Woman game?
I'm pretty sure it's the exact same team.
That would be neat. Which, okay, moving on to Wonder Woman, that's pretty good.
I mean,
I can only imagine... Oh, go on.
I mean, if Asobo Studio can transition from making fucking Toy Story 3 on the PSP to making a Plague Tale and Flight Simulator, then I don't see why these developers can transition into that.
Also, stuff like Other Ocean, which specialized in relatively cheap, licensed game, ended up making Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist and then the Medieval Remake. Also, what's with the Cape Talion? Okay.
That was weird.
Legacy of the Duelist and then the Medieval Remake.
I can only imagine how varied the mooks will be in the Wonder Woman one. Like, maybe they'll actually make different superpowered villains.
Like I said, the general idea probably would be something like maybe some of them will start as street thugs, but maybe because of plot elements, they gain access to devices, or elements that allows them to gain superpowers of their own, which will allow variety. But again, we still have to see. Admittedly, the game has been announced for a while and we still don't know anything yet, so we'll have to see.
I will say, it must show how much people love this particular system that they apparently advertised that it would be using specifically the Nemesis system.
It has become basically the bread and butter of the studio, but again, to a fault, because remember, while people were interested to see if other studios from other places and companies could adopt it, Warner Bros. And Monolith were very quickly to file a patent for it because it's relatively unique.
Of course.
Meaning that if they want to use it similar to an engine, they had to pay for it, and people did not took it well, I guess. But
I guess I can kind of get how some people would be annoyed that a form of gameplay is copywritten like that. Like, I get why they did it, it's unique and all, but I can also get how that might rub people who wanted to do something like that a certain way. It's like, oh, I had this idea, but I guess I'm being punished for not having been the one to think of it first. Like, let's imagine, for whatever reason, you're a gamer or something who knows nothing about these two games. You want to make a gameplay style that just happens to coincide with it. And then suddenly you get hit with like a sort of a licensing or a cease and desist because it's, just a little similar, like not even identical like a plagiarist bout.
Okay, not to that extent, Jova, because at its core, this Nemesis system works in a similar way to elements from roguelike games will technically do the effect of randomness. But it's like, considering it's very specific in terms of fabricating, books with a specific type of, and even randomizing the encounters this way. This is not the equivalent of something that you will see in, something like, say, Dead Cells, or The Binding of Isaac.
I think I get what you mean. Like, well, the system here is incredibly specific.
It's similar, but it's still specific nonetheless. So the idea is not that people will accidentally coming to infringe it. Like, it's more of a case that people would want to use specifically this one, and as such, they made sure that they will have to, pay royalties for it.
But as punishment, I received only
I don't often hear about this, but maybe it happens more often than I hear about it, that gameplay styles or engines specifically are patented. To be fair, engines being patented, that makes sense.
Now, the gameplay styles, it's a bit of a rare occurrence because, these days it's genres and everything tend to be, varied enough that people don't even realize it. I get it because of how specifically unique and how complex an AI utilizes. I guess it's like I said, the studio has been kind of special in doing this already with the fear games by giving the AI to the opponents, incredible capabilities of adapting. So again, it's mostly of a case of programming skills. Again, it's only up to you to decide if it's genuine or for the case of displaying the property or anything, or it's just simple greed. I'm pretty sure either case can be valid.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, for the artifacts, this is, as Idris says, this is a Haradrim necklace.
Such strange clothing.
And yet, to the men of the South, it is as ordinary as your tunic. Only distance makes this precious.
I wonder how long a pigskin could be reserved. On your knee!
Sauron understood that power did not come from armies, but the willingness to sacrifice, to lie in wait. This is the truth he taught me, and so I lie in wait. And when the day comes, I will make my sacrifice.
She sacrificed the ring. She gave it to us.
There is calculation in her every move. We can never trust her.
Like the elves, Sauron values wisdom above all else. But for him, it is a cold, hard thing.
Fascinating.
He believes freedom is an empty virtue.
Yeah, again, I don't get why these bits aren't subtitled. Like, okay, we've already talked about how...
It's not even like they would be intrusive or anything. Like, pretty sure
Like,
they're
literally
just the same as every other dialogue.
And again, like, we've talked about how songs can maybe be copywritten to the point where subtitles aren't allowed, but these obviously aren't songs. So yeah, that's 3 clips of Shelob walking we've seen.
Again, we'll just need to wait for the full picture.
Never thought I'd hear you say that.
You know, if I didn't know better, I'd say she was doing the bridal gown walk, except she's clearly dressed in black.
The lady in black?
Ah!
It has long been customary for the people of Minas Ithil to offer an amphora of water or wine to any visitor from beyond our walls. Such travelers were rare, especially recently, and making the trek to the frontier almost guaranteed a thirsty guest. But when our need was greatest, no one from Gondor came to our gates, thirsty or otherwise.
This amphora, it is older than it appears.
Yeah, not now, Celebrimbor. We're kind of busy.
The orcs would sully it with their grog.
I do like how he can talk over that even while you're
They're
fighting
basically
for your
speaking.
life.
It's like we're speaking telepathically to an extent.
Wouldn't that be funny? They're having a mundane
I do not fear
conversation while Talion is busy fighting off a
I
dragon.
fear their drums. An orc can be defeated in battle. His threat can be walled off or outmaneuvered. But the low rumbling of the drums, that cannot be halted by any artifice of man.
Huh.
Those drums are the heartbeat of their factories, and every beat marks the orcs' relentless advance.
So, a standard war drum.
Yes.
And I locked them up in the Great Hall so that no orc could ever...
I've seen some of these when in Return of the King used by trolls to keep the steady march to the
So the
army.
orcs have musicians among them.
Hardly.
Do orcs have musicians? Talion, need I remind you, one of your first opponents was a bard who literally used a sitar as a weapon.
There is a beauty
And that sitar had blades and everything on it, too.
In the rule of one. That is why he must be stopped. I saw a battle upon a tower. I saw the Dark Lord defeated and a Bright Lord take his place. But the world did not change.
But the future refused to change.
The world did not change.
Okay.
She turned away from Sauron, as did I. And yet she cannot see that.
She fears you. She fears what will become of Middle-earth when we defeat him.
That's just being paranoid.
I'm pretty sure Middle-earth will be better off without Sauron.
Alright, next artifact.
There are no dwarves in Mordor. At first glance, this land would seem to suit them. Plenty of stone for carving and ore veins to mine. This shield belonged to a dwarf from another age who did come to Mordor, though not as a craftsman nor a miner. Now that Minas Ithil no longer contains the orcs within Mordor, the dwarves will have to put down chisel and hammer and pick up their shields once more.
That sounds foreboding.
Yeah, it's basically what was happening alongside the events of the War of the Ring, the so-called War in the North, where the armies of the now freed, places from the Hobbit had to face, their own contingency of orcs. Alright, before moving on, I think I need to actually deal with this guy because he was peppering me with these explosive bolts. Yes, apparently, it was a thing.
I do love a good stomping.
But you're a neck snapper.
Maybe he stomps on their necks to make them snap?
I mean, it's a possibility. Well, again, it will make his profession as a marksman a bit redundant in that case. He should be more of a fighter.
Yes, so.
Yeah, they cannot recruit him because he's enraged. Alas.
Oh boy.
Sorry mate, you have to die. You're too angry to be
Shank.
an
Try not to be too pissed if you come back to life.
Well, with that decapitation, like I said, it will be very unlikely.
Oh, remember though, didn't you mention it's possible for
But the decapitation is usually the best method. It would be very rare for orcs to come back from that. It's a possibility,
okay.
but... Also, for some reason, the audio description of this artifact is bugged, and it doesn't play in its entirety. Don't know why.
But some things were lost forever.
It's basically it's kind of like an element configuration from Hellraiser.
Interesting.
What did this device do?
Probably nothing. The
You don't
Numenoreans
know.
Experimented too much.
Yeah, repeat after me, Celebrimbor. I do not know.
Come on, Celebrimbor. Come on, Celebrimbor. Even my dad was able to admit when he didn't know things. You can do that too.
We'll get to this
What
guy eventually.
vampire game did that guy come out of?
More of a, not necessarily a necromancer, but an occultist of sorts. And yes, ladies, in case you're wondering, you can potentially push the orcs into the normal woods into the lava. Oh.
You never know who's got a big brother, keen for revenge.
Whatever,
Whose
you're just
brother might
another...
you be?
Well, the ones that I just killed.
Ha!
Well, whatever, just another body to the pile, so step forward. Talion's Execution Emporium, 3 kills.
Bonus points if you actually recruit him.
Speaking
of which...
like I said, when it comes to Blood Brothers Revenge, they're automatically gaining the Iron Will trait, meaning that you cannot, recruit them. Again, I will talk more in details about these things when it becomes potentially blood important.
So the only way to be able to bind a blood brother would be to come after them before they come after you, I assume.
No, because the moment you actually, the blood brother is killed, that's what triggers instantaneously, no matter, where you are or what you're doing.
So how do you do that? Because you mentioned in a previous part that there are actually achievements for getting, blood brothers both under your banner.
You need to recruit both of them before any of them get killed, and then manipulate them so they can fight each other in the you know, in the pits.
Okay, so you gotta get like super duper lucky.
Like I said, you are the whim of the AI.
Which, okay, you know what? To be fair, given how replayable this game is, I won't complain. Like,
Not just
'cause,
that,
you know,
if you go at a decent rhythm of killing orcs, you will get essentially new supply constantly. Again, it may not be
True,
conveyed much because I'm, you know, I'm trimming away a lot of fat around with the editing. But trust me when I say this, you know, the new supply is coming very frequently.
I can believe it.
Our last king, Gondor has thrived under the guidance of ruling stewards, each a lord of Musketeers.
Still prefer the term that my country used for the role superintendent.
What's that?
The role of the steward, the one that Denethor has in Return of the King, the essentially the regents in place, you know, of the kings of Gondor.
These were the words that freed Gondor from its kings.
And yet the steward rules from a throne room, does he not? It's scarcely different.
Okay, Celebrimbor, way to make a political statement.
Ramas.
Alright, last piece of Ithildin, we'll use it later.
I've reached the top. Does that mean I've conquered the land now?
Unfortunately, no, James. It doesn't work like that.
The Analects of Ruvenia is
I mean, if it did, Sauron would win just by being the highest tower out there.
Yeah, because of Barad.
So that's all we gotta do. Build a tower that's higher than the that's higher than that one.
A great deal, and I learned
Building
two
cock
key
contest.
Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers building edition.
Cue that clip from MST3K. Sure, it's phallic. Why wouldn't it be?
Reminds me of Bryan Cranston's character from How I Met Your Mother, where he tries to upstage the main character with his building, which, as the head points out, is clearly just a penis.
These times, such grace is lost on the denizens of
I think he's trying to compensate for something.
Probably.
From its pit.
Alright, it's time to deal with Gorgorth, which it's not a dragon, Jova. It's a balrog. For some reason, Mordor has a balrog in its backyard. Yeah, this is one of those things that were not actually specified in the movies or the book, so something that the game is actually inventing.
I've never heard tales of these balrogs.
It's always the dark and spooky layer with you people.
And this is the guy, if you paid attention, that we noticed when Minas Tirith was being besieged. Boys by North.
Rise and join our glory.
It looks almost like he's cosplaying for an Assassin's Creed game.
The hood is because this is a rare occasion. A orc necromancer.
Huh. Yeah, that is rare.
What do they unearth?
They are summoning death. But it will be death for all.
How poetic. Let's move on.
Yeah, could you be a bit more specific? I'm pretty sure their whole goal is to kill us all, my dude.
Well, they hope they can control the balrog, which is foolish to say the least, but let's try to kill this cultist because that's not really something I want to see.
So what you're telling me is that even the necromancer orcs clearly have low stats and intelligence.
Well, not really. This guy, Zog, is a more of a unique case more than anything. Essentially being a necromancer. Thankfully, again, like you said, they're extremely rare when it came to captain types, and this one is story mandated anyway, you know. But they can be present, and they're not really pretty. We will see a demonstration eventually. For the time being, this guy Zog, which very imaginative name, is just they're trying to resurrect these balrogs. So for the time being, we just need to kill the acolytes in the meantime.
Also, yeah, Zog is the name of the giant golden robot we find in the Astro Boy 2009 movie. So
yeah, you know, if I recall correctly, in the book, wasn't the balrog described as being much smaller than it actually is in the movie? And I guess by since in this game,
it was a case where it needed to actually walk through the halls of Moria, which were built by dwarves and everything, but they were still, relatively big, or especially for their standards, So yes and no. The movie is played a bit fast and loose in how the size of a balrog is, but to be fair, it's not like they were made with each one looking the same as the other. They were essentially the very more personal bodyguards of Melkor, meaning they're literally like demigod in terms of status, or in power, in terms of power. But while having something similar in terms of structure, physical structure to them, they were not completely identical.
To meet the most famous dead man in Mordor. You really shook the world with that ring-forging trick of yours. After that, Gorgorth only needed a little coaxing. Now, it rises to the surface, and it comes for you.
Yeah, no thank you.
I'm sure you practiced a lot for that speech, my dude, but now you gotta die.
And being a cultist of this kind, it can also inflict curse. It's not really pretty. Again, if you don't remember what I said, the curse essentially does that, puts the Eye of Sauron, in your HUD, blocking a bit the minimap, and drains your health and Elven Rage meters considerably.
I wonder, are there other necromancer orcs that we can later recruit?
Okay, they can be recruitable, but it's very rare, because, again, already them showing up, it would be a rare occurrence, but also, a lot of them would possess the trait Iron Will.
It doesn't end here. I will wake all the dead of Mordor before we're done. All the lives you ended. And once they're risen, who do you think they'll come for? Oh yes, we'll
Fortunately, Zoki is a kind of a sore loser and tells out, whatever.
Of course,
well, we have
necromancer
bigger problems
becomes a
anyway,
teleport.
so I'm getting there, Celebrimbor.
Fools. No one can tame a balrog.
Oh, this one has wings.
Or more skeletal.
God forbid it can probably still use them to fly.
Well,
wow!
Shit,
how's that for
what were they
gratitude?
expecting? Yeah, pretty much. Are you sure about that?
Don't you know, Carnan's the greatest. Although she's technically made of the grass element, so doesn't that mean she's a bad fit against the Balrog, given how they're all about fire?
I don't know.
Also, what do you mean we woke him? Like, technically that was the orcs that did that, honey.
We tried to stop him. Come on.
Please. Carnan's kind of a dick at times.
Kind
More
of.
of a case again. It's a clear case of blue and orange morality. Anyway, while Carnan and the Balrog are busy having a small kaiju fight, you're supposed to actually try to hit the weak points of Balrog, hoping to achieve something. Because again, this is a first stage demon, and as much as Celebrimbor, is powerful on his own, it's not, even with the ring, it's not really enough to deal with this fucking thing.
Wow, you're racking up quite the achievements, aren't you, Talion? Like, let's see, first consorting with Shelob, and now fighting a flipping Balrog.
To pitted sleep, we bury again. You trespass my dominion.
Trying to dodge the AoEs,
I'm sure the Balrog would respond in kind if they could speak that language.
Yeah, the balrog does speak instead of the dark speech that first premiered again with the Silmarillion, and was later utilized by, you know, Sauron and the orcs.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, in the first movie, the balrog originally didn't like talk at all.
No, the word in general, the way they're presented, even in the Ralbashki version, it was just, you know, that this big demon who did not speak. But because essentially, the balrog did not even do that in the book anyway, so. Mostly because, again, they're more like one. Even in the Silmarillion, they were described also being an elite corps without having particular personalities about it, aside from their captain, Gothmog. And even so, they did not, you know, allow them to speak, more like let their actions talk, because, again, even in the first stage where people, you know, had the means to actually fight against them, the Balrog were still, you know, highly destructive. They were the ones who managed to actually repel Ungoliant when she was actually about to kill Melkor, so that's also a statement to something. Now we have to have phase 2, which is a bit more, you know, it's a kind of similar bit to that boxing match in Spyro 3 between Bentley and the Yeti, the part that everybody loves. But you have a bit more degrees of freedom. It's just that a lot of times it will be tied to context-sensitive duties. Thankfully, again, it's not like the final boss of Slight is in time, so don't worry about that. There we go.
It's like we're controlling our own kaiju.
Basically. You can also tell that for these kind of motions, for this fight, they were actually mo-capped, to an extent at least.
The lighting's a bit weird on the Balrog, though. Looks like it's encasing him in shadow, a bit darker than need be.
That's because, again, the Balrogs are both beings of both shadow and flame. You know, usually in the movie are represented by the steam being like lava, you know. Sometimes they heat up, but other times will just, you know, remain, you know, beings of darkness. And now, to finish the fight, we have to do the Breath of the Wild, you know, jumping and shooting in slow motion.
Beautiful.
Breath of the Wild ripped this game off. Fucking hacks.
No, wait, hold on.
Like I said, it's more like, well, as soon as Breath of the Wild came out, everybody and their mother wanted to copy that. So I think it's not necessarily baffling, but it's more curious because as a kind of a motion, you know, for the type of actions in movies and games, they did exist beforehand. So
this game came out in
2017.
This game came out. Oh wow, same year as Breath of the Wild.
That's the thing too. It's kind of similar to some dumb Pokemon fans claiming that RPGs that try to have monster mechanics are ripping off Pokemon, even though Pokemon was not the first RPG to have monster catching mechanics.
Oh, okay. To give them credit, though, there are a few examples where, yeah, stuff is blatantly ripping off Pokemon. Like, it's not terribly uncommon. Doesn't mean that they can't be good.
Unfortunately, these obviously been in the fight that we did jack shit.
No rest for you. No rest for we, Deathless One.
Thanks, Carnan. You're welcome, by the way.
We'll get back to that.
So, a Balrog's running loose.
Spirit of Carnan.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
Devastation and its revival many times over. She was here before any of us.
Man, you know, the party in the original trilogy should thank their lucky stars they didn't have to deal with a free-roaming Balrog. Alright, got the skill points and everything.
Again, the leveling up and make sure that you get a skill point, you know, every time you finish a mission, because you gain that much amount of experience and currency. Anyway, before finishing off, let's get to the Barrow of the region, since we haven't done this yet, and solve the riddle. detail has been collected.
Onto the riddle. Yep, exactly.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, almost more literal. It's not necessarily a puzzle, but instead, it's literally a composition of a riddle.
Well, the ones in that game and that other game mentioned, they weren't exactly puzzles either.
I mean...
Well, technically they were puzzles, it's just that the morons who translated that from Japanese, riddle, puzzle, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of people... Well, okay, that's not to say a riddle and puzzle can't be the same thing. The problem is that people assume that they're always the same thing when that is not the case.
According to the Layton universe, a puzzle can be pretty much anything with the complexity of having to, put something in another place. So even something like this could be considered that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm more used to the Italian version of these poems, so having to deal with their original English version is a bit different.
They stalk and lurk, then lash out so furious. Yet our bulwark is proof against their rage. Our hard-ringed, hand-forged armor impervious to predations from the powers of darkness, no matter how vicious or how vile. To assail the Bright Lord is to falter.
And my reward for this is the Bright Lord's sword. I don't remember if it's powerful, as what I have currently, which does remind me, the current equipment that I have for Talion is a bit shitty, but unfortunately that was the one with the better stats that I could get for the time. I watched it again, one of the previous parts, especially the vomit green color that was present during the siege was not really that optimal. Thankfully I will get better drip, in the next couple of parts. Speaking of which, in the next part we will actually go to the other region where we unlock Sereghost, and we'll see what we can do there. Yeah.
So yeah.
Alright.
Just.